Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quantum Leap Revisited, a show where we celebrate the original Quantum Leap series from 1989, the one that ran from 1989 to 1993. This is a great stream sorry about that. It's a great stream where we rewatch classic episodes. This week we're watching Season 2, Episode 5, which is Blind Faith. And as usual, I have a great panel of guests here with me. You have the Script Doctor. The Script Doctor is an experienced screenwriter. He has his own Patreon where he teaches people the art of writing or the art of screenplay writing. And in addition, he also has a YouTube channel where he discusses writing, where he just recently launched a new show called Script on Saturday. That's every Saturday at Script. What time is it?
7 p.m. Eastern.
7 p.m. Eastern. And if you're not already subscribed, he has a great channel. I highly recommend it. Script, how are you doing?
Doing well. Been a busy week in addition to the Valentine's Day stuff, but I'm happy to have been able to squeeze in time to chat with you guys because we got a heck of a good episode today.
We're excited as well. We're always happy to have you here and always grateful when you are. Next, we have Nicholas, the Back Yard Tardis. For those of you who don't already know, Nicholas is a man who wears many hats. In his town, he is the local minister. He is the local locksmith. He is the local assisting the sheriff and the fire department when they have issues entering certain areas. And in addition, he also has his own ranch. And on that ranch, he also has goats. And in addition to all of that, he's an expert on science fiction and things that involve science fiction, fandoms, things like that. Very knowledgeable. Always great to have Nick here. How's it going, Nick?
Going good. I've been busy as well, and just enjoying along. I'm always listening to podcasts and stuff. I bit the bullet this week. Everybody been trying to get me to get on that Smallville podcast, give that a chance, and I gotta say, we're not all created equal. They had 12 sponsor reads on their first episode. So, but I'm just locksmithing and enjoying nerd stuff as I can as I go.
Now, Nick has two channels. He has Adventures in Locksmithing, where he talks about his adventures as a locksmith. Really interesting and unique stuff. He also has the Back Yard Tardis channel, which he talks about more just science fiction reviews, things like that he discusses there. Next, we have Ro from the Scarif Podcast, also known as Ro from the Scarif Scuttlebutt Podcast. Ro is a veteran in the broadcast news area. He's been working in that field for many years. He understands a lot of things when it comes to production and equipment setup, camera, cinematography, things like that. So a lot of technical stuff. He always has some good input when it comes to that kind of stuff when we watch anything, and we're always happy to have him here. He also has his own, the podcast that he has. He is an expert in Star Wars. He talks a lot about Star Wars, things he likes about it, things he doesn't like about it. And in general, just he knows a lot about other science fiction. Great guy with a lot of experience. And also, he's the co-founder of the Red 5 Network, which Nick was talking about, which is a network of creators that do a bunch of cool stuff. Ro, how's it going?
It's going fantastic. It's wonderful to be here with such an established and esteemed group of gentlemen on the panel. It's always fun to talk Quantum Leap.
That is always fun for us as well. And finally, we have the real Sean Krummel, the artist. Sean is an artist. He has his own channel. He also has his own Etsy store where you can buy his original stickers, which I highly recommend. I always put that store in the link in the descriptions in videos, no matter what platform you're watching. I always put that link. Highly recommend that you check it out. In addition, Sean brings his artistic eye, has a lot of interesting things, usually comments sometimes that people don't think of, because he kind of looks at things from the lens of an artist, which is always interesting for us to hear. And his own channel, The Real Sean Krummel, he also does original arts there that he draws. He does retro comic reviews, and he also occasionally does live streams where he talks about pop culture. Highly recommend that channel as well. Sean, how's it going?
Good. That's it. I'm doing good. Just released a new video today, and I'm just relaxing with the wife for the rest of the evening, and then I get to get on here and talk with you guys about Quantum Leap.
That's what we do. So now that we're all here, let's just jump into, and of course, hi to everybody in the chat. Great people, Ron Donofero. We got a new person, Tornadoes. Great to see everybody here. And of course on Rumble, where I don't really have as much access to the different people watching, but I'll try to somehow find a way to check in at some point. Hello to everybody there as well. Let's get started. So this week we have this episode, Blind Faith, which I'm just going to share the screen and we're going to jump into it. Tex would be really happy at how quickly we're jumping into the episode.
I know, less than 7 minutes in.
So, it starts off, he remembers, we're still in the phase where each episode he's remembering his previous adventures. I don't mind it. It's interesting. It's fine that they do it. I kind of like that at some point. I don't know why. I just like what they do at some point, that they have their permanent solution for this. But this isn't bad. So he's remembering the other episode, saying, "Oh, I did this, I did that. It was good, it was bad," and then he leaps. And now, as we saw him last time, he's a blind pianist, and he finishes his song. Everybody claps, and there's a woman, looking at how great he is and smiling, and they all want an encore. And that's his dog. He's blind. They all want an encore. And not knowing what exactly to do, he does the only thing he figures he can do, which is play chopsticks, which is actually a ridiculous thing to do. But they think that he's being very playful, so they're all kind of just laughing, and they think it's so great that he did this. What a smart and artsy guy that he is. When in fact Sam just is trying to wing it here. That's kind of funny, I guess.
Yeah, it was a hit. I think it was playful and goes along, I guess, with his character later on or something.
Right, and then the opening starts. Let's start with that kind of cold open or whatever it is that we looked at. What do you think of this opening? Let's start with you, Script.
I thought it was pretty charming, and I liked how it hints at a setup it's a setup that hints at a payoff that comes much later, and it's one that you don't expect, which I thought was really cleverly crafted. And I liked how seamlessly they incorporated the stock footage of the audience at Carnegie into the episode itself. In fact, I think the only hiccup they had is it was the exact same audience with the exact same clothing later on in the episode when you go back to them again.
Yeah, I noticed that.
But you're so engrossed in the actual what's going on screen that you actually don't really pick up on it unless you've got a really strong eye for detail.
It's very well done. I actually, until you said it now, I didn't really even think about it, to be honest. I wasn't really focusing. They were just an audience. I didn't focus on it. But now that you mentioned it, I think you're right. But I just, it was something I hadn't noticed. So good call. Nick, how did you feel about this cold open or whatever it is?
I really liked what they did, and you kind of hinted to this, but had he tried to just play something a little more complicated and didn't come off perfect, I think the audience would have gone, "Oh, what was that?" But because they're all thinking this is somebody who's like this expert master, and then he plays something simple, it just, it's funny, and he's able to win over the crowd because of how silly that would be if you were at some grand hall and then they played something simple like that. So I like how that little save got him through that moment, and it kind of really set up kind of the episode in general.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sean, how did you feel about it?
I thought it was brilliant. You fall back on what you know, and most kids know chopsticks. And in a pinch, it just showed that Sam can think on his feet, and reinforced that a bit.
Absolutely. Ro, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I think Script used the word charming, and I would have to echo that. It was very charming all around. One of the things that I liked about this episode is how they treated the character of Chopin, the dog.
He's my favorite part.
Yeah, and it was such a wonderful, kind of refreshing look at the relationship between the characters, Scott Bakula and the dog. It was, again, to use Script's word, it was very charming, and they do it throughout the episode, and he becomes an active member of the cast later on. So it was a nice surprise. And it was more so, this is probably the one dog actor that had a lot more to do than just bark at Al when he appeared.
Right. And for me, what I especially liked about this opening is that how much information they gave us in a short amount of time. I mean, he arrived, he has to be a pianist, he's blind, he has that dog because he's blind, there's the lady already waiting for him, so there's a love interest, and they're expecting him to do an encore. This is all a lot of things happening in just a few short minutes, but you immediately understand everything, and there isn't even a lot of, it's really showing and not telling in this case.
Right.
There's no, again, I it doesn't matter, I'm not going to say a specific show, but a lot of times, and even now I'm reviewing some movie where the dialogue is so bad, people just keep saying what's happening, and it's interesting when you see something like this where nobody even says anything. Is there even a word of dialogue here? Maybe he has to talk to his girlfriend for a second, but generally speaking, you learn a lot from nothing. They show you, and then you really pick up on it, and that's something that I like personally.
I think that has to do with the fact that we do have a generation of attention deficit disorder, where
Yeah.
people aren't really paying attention to what's on the screen. So in order to make up for that, they poor writers, instead of writing something interesting to compel attention, they just fill in the blanks with dialogue so that when the person's looking at their phone, they don't miss anything important because their other senses are getting the information. And I think that's a disservice, because this opening here is a pretty strong beginning. You completely understand the situation he's in and how Sam puts it all together as quickly as possible so that we cannot realize what's at stake.
Yeah, I agree. Good point. Just one thing I want to say, that somebody in the chat, when I was saying that, giving an example of how saying I was reviewing something that is the way you just described it, Script, that it's more for ADHD, somebody wrote it's probably Madam Web, and that is true. That's the movie that I'm reviewing. It exactly is that. That is a very poorly written screenplay. I always say it, and you're always saying to me, oh, why are you surprised that after all these years it still holds up? I am surprised that I have to look at 1989 for a show that is written by people that don't seem like idiots, but it's still, I guess it is what it is. What can we do? Huh. Let's go forward. We see the opening, the thing. This is the good opening. At least it's not that kind of scaled down wherever it was in the original one. This is the real Quantum Leap opening. It's fine. You have Blind Faith. They're in
New York in the 1960s.
1960s. It is. They're walking around here. He's with this lady who's his assistant / love interest.
And she's adorable.
Yeah,
She seemed a tad too young for him.
Well, too young for Scott Bakula. But
Yeah, right.
The image of the Josh Brolin looking guy.
Right.
right.
You're right.
Seems a bit more appropriate. I also find it kind of interesting. Have you ever seen Red Dragon?
Long time ago.
Oh, the kind of like the prequel. Isn't that the prequel of
the prequel with like Ray Fiennes and Edward Norton? Well, the love interest in that one, she's got the same type of haircut and presence that this actress has, even though they're not the same actress. But it just reminded me of that. Like, she's this innocent. She's this woman who is clearly feels like you could see her being a victim. And then we've got the shot of the newspaper on the ground, just right here. That Price queued up, the third girl strangled in Central Park. So we got this framing work coming here that's obviously reflective of another movie that was made like almost a decade after this episode aired. And I thought it was kind of interesting that we have a physical silhouette, as it were, and hairstyle and adorableness of this one character, and oddly enough, that female character in Red Dragon is blind. So we got all these things that are kind of overlapping in it, and I'm wondering, could the book also have a little bit of influence on this episode? And they just kind of flipped some stuff around and played with, let's just keep it more intimate between these two characters and let the Strangler be the strange attractor, the mystery that we're not following.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice touch. That just you find the paper here and it pans down to it and you kind of see it. It's a pan. Ro, is it a pan?
It's a tilt down, actually. Pan is right and left.
Oh, you're right. I meant to. You're right.
Although Steven Spielberg actually said pan up in one of the behind the scenes of Jurassic Park, but I'll let it slide.
I think it was a tilt down. Yeah, there was a tilt. Let's see it.
There's tilt, there's rise, there's a whole lot of other camera techniques, but that one's specifically a tilt because the camera is literally tilting.
Right, it's tilting down, of course. I understood the movement. I just kind of sometimes the terms themselves.
There's a lot.
Pan stays on the same type of plane, but it can go left and right, and then you have rise is up and down. But you don't like move forward or back. Like that's different. That's closing in or pulling out.
I studied this back in the day.
And then there's truck in and then truck out, and then you can pedestal up. Yeah, it's a whole glossary.
That's that's TV language too. That's the other part too. On sets they just do rise and low. It's strange, even though there's a lot of crossover between feature and television on the crew side of things. The terminology does alter, which has always bothered me. I'm like, why isn't it just uniform?
Well, even in college, there's always been like a rivalry between the television department and the film department in college.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of that too.
Yeah,
nerds.
No, I mean, I actually used to know the terminologies better, but because I don't do this on a regular basis with a camera, and I don't have anybody to talk to about these terms, then I somehow they're kind of jumbled in my mind. So yes, the pan is right and left, and the tilt is what you guys said, it's up and down. But at least my intentions were good.
We used to have to know them all for when I went for animation, and I don't even know which version they used, whether it be television or film. My 2 cents.
It'd be a nightmare either way. That's why I can never get into the animation side of things.
Yeah, animation's a big deal. I always hope that maybe they'll invent such software that it's so easy to do animation that maybe I'll start doing it, because then if it's easy, maybe I should do it.
And when everyone's super, no one will be.
Yep.
or Jedi.
Yeah.
So back to this thing. He's with this assistant who's a volunteer and also his love interest or something along those lines. I like this part, and I think he does it in a very charming way. You were saying charming script, but I also think it's charming how he arrives, has no idea what's going on, and he's trying to figure it out. And usually his answers are funny because there's sort of a double meaning. We know that he doesn't know where he is, but he sort of says it in a way that the other people don't pick up on the fact that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I always like the way he's playful in these kind of scenes. I like the way they're written. Not going to dwell on the. It's like now with our checklist. Not going to dwell on the new show, but I feel like the new show tries to do this and doesn't get it right, like we see here. It never comes off as nonchalant and playful as we see here in the new one. But regardless, he wants her to come upstairs, I guess, or he sort of says, or
They're talking about meeting her mother, and she said that she's not ready to introduce him to her yet.
Right, but she also says like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to go home now." Like he as if he thinks he was expecting that she would come upstairs, and I think Sam himself is sort of still confused, so he's kind of just going along with it. And she's like, "Yeah, my mom, my this, my that," and this is a good part where this lady walks with her dogs, and then I was surprised because usually Sam is more of a Boy Scout, but it seemed like he was.
He felt the guilt right after he, because his hand goes and covers his face, like, oh, what am I doing?
Right, and the thing that's cool is that this is actually relevant for other things that happen in the episode. Meaning, she's not just some woman that walked by, but there's actually a reason why she's here it's sort of a planning and payoff or whatever you want to call it, but so some kind of setup at least. And I think it's cool that it's not just some random thing. It actually, there's a reason why she's here, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, I think IMDb actually gave her a credit as like French woman.
She's Chekhov's gun in this episode.
One of them.
Right. So exactly. So and I actually thought now on the rewatch, I hadn't seen in a while, I thought that Al would show up and be like, Sam,
Yeah, right.
look at her. I remember back in the day when I was in France, I did whatever. And like I'm already expecting it, and he never shows up. And I'm like, oh, but there's actually there was another purpose for her, so it's cool. And then he walks into his apartment, and then he sees what you guys called the Josh Brolin look.
He looks kind of like a Josh Brolin or a cousin.
From Goonies.
Yeah.
Those
Or
days,
Thanos.
early days.
Looks just like Thanos.
Early Thanos.
And I love that doesn't show Pan isn't the dog, isn't he like looking back and forth?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
So he's like processing the different images.
Yeah,
now-
'cause I guess dogs can see the soul of people, and the reflection doesn't match the soul, obviously. So
Mhm.
And this is the first time they've really shown the dogs react to Al, but this is the first time they've shown it react to him. So
Yeah.
I kind of thought that was interesting. And the dog also did he have a negative reaction there to the officer right at the beginning?
No,
A little
he's got
foreshadowing?
peanuts.
No, he liked him because
Okay.
he brought him peanuts or something.
Right.
So he's just barking to get his treat.
Yeah.
Right.
And obviously that, for an audience, the fact that the police officer brought a treat for the dog kind of endears this character, this officer, to the audience. So later on, we don't expect anything. So
Right. It introduces him. They get off on the right foot with him. He's this nice guy, wants to give the dog treats, and
yeah,
Sam is still trying to figure out, oh, his name is Pete, and you're more focused on the dog and on Sam trying to find out what's going on here. Now it's the assistant lady, girl, whatever, at home, and of course you have her sort of very strict and annoying mom, and bitter mom, or whatever you want to call her. She's unhappy because she expected her daughter, can't remember her name now, but she expected her daughter to go to nursing school or something like that, and she feels that if she went to a concert, she's not taking her studies seriously. And since the mom had a tough life and her husband left her or something like that, she doesn't want her daughter to go through the same thing. So her daughter has to go to nursing school immediately, as she smokes cigarettes and acts bitter.
And she's breaking her back, I think she says, to put her through.
Yes, she broke her
nursing
back
school.
to put her through it, so she has to do what she's told. And the one thing that I'll say is, and again, I'm not dwelling, but it's just because I always see the contrast. I sometimes complain, not only in the new show, but just in general in time travel shows, that they don't actually represent the time that the person has traveled into. I think that in 1964, a woman saying these things to a daughter actually does make some kind of sense. I feel like they did actually capture something that was realistic for the time that it was happening in, which so many times today I see shows, not even just the new one, that they never get that right. They think that if they're showing something that happened in 1964, that people will be talking like they're in 2024. And here I thought that the dynamics and how things were unfolding seemed more realistic. You guys can weigh in. That was just what I thought.
Well, go ahead, Nick.
There was so much about this that at the one hand I thought was over the top in her character, but at the same time I got it. She reacts to her going to this classical kind of high-end concert like she went to see Kiss or something,
Or the Beatles.
Yeah.
Right.
Or the Beatles for the period of the time, yeah. But it made me reflect on a similar experience I had when I was dating my wife. I was still living at home, and we actually went to a Bible group thing, and we ended up, this is when we didn't have cell phones, and so we ended up just hanging out afterwards, everybody just talking. And I didn't think to call home, and I got home after 10 o'clock. And they knew that I was with the girl I was dating, and I just remember my parents like freaking out. And I'm like, we were at a Bible thing. It was like, what did you think was going to happen? And they're like, well, you're grounded. And I was like, what? I'm 18. I'm like,
almost regret you not doing something sinister if you got grounded, right?
Yeah. And so it's funny. It's funny how like when I saw this, it made me think of that, because it's like she's going to this high end, like everybody who's there. This is obviously a place that costs money to get into. It's not, she's not out at a rave or some underground Beatles mania party or something like that. She's getting some class, maybe rubbing some shoulders with some people who could help her in the future.
Right. She's actually considering what she could be doing in the 1960s when the Beatles are popular and in town. Her going to some guy playing a piano, that's really not doesn't seem like such a big deal. But they're trying to present the mom as a strict mom. Here Al appears. I'm trying to remember in this scene. Is this the scene where Sam worries that he has to perform and he doesn't know how to play? And Al's like, yeah, don't worry. Is that what happens here?
Yeah, he frames out. Well, he talks mostly about the Tijuana chick who can sing the national anthem in like 40 different languages, as well as play instruments with various body parts. But
oldies with their toesies.
Oldies with their toesies. But the question, this kind of sets up the fact that he's, because his recital is tomorrow, and that he is going to be able. Al's got an idea, and I think it's the third time he comes in. The next time he comes in, that's where he sets up that everything's going to be a-okay. But this is all the framing of it and everything, and Sam is justifiably concerned, which I thought was a little bit ironic to a point, because there's like, when I was watching this episode for the very first time when I was a kid, I was thinking, oh, Al's going to do what he did in the pilot episode. He's going to be like, just follow my hands, and play the piano that way. That's what I originally thought. And the reason I thought this is because at the time I was actually taking piano lessons, and my teacher was telling me how any person can play a musical instrument. Doesn't matter if they're tone deaf or not. All they have to do is just follow the mechanics of what the song is, and you can be fine. And that's your one tier level of a musician. The next tier is someone that can bring life to the performance. And then the third tier is someone that can actually compose. And if you're any one of those three tiers, you can make a living doing music. In fact, I know someone who he has no sense of rhythm, rhyme, or reason, but he plays the trumpet perfectly, like mechanically perfectly, everything. He's part of an orchestra, and he's just like, I have no talent, but I just love playing the trumpet. So, he worked hard, he memorized and figured out the movements, and he's like, anyone can do it. If you don't have talent, you just got to stay focused on what you're doing. And I'm thinking, okay, so is that what they're going to do? Like, that's what I was thinking at the time as a kid. That what they're going to do there? He's just going to follow things, stay focused, and do what he can. And I liked the twist that came as a result of this.
I just want to say that
that's more mystery with Sam as well.
I just want to say that I'm a tier 3, and with tier 3, I was able to make the outro for this stream. That's pretty much the height of my career as tier 3. That's the furthest I got. So
I am definitely tier 1. Don't get me into song music or behind an instrument. I could not master piano. I had to leave for two reasons. One, my piano teacher sadly passed away, and two, the second one that came in didn't like to teach what kids liked to learn or listen to first, which is how you get them into the field of music. They just said, no, you're going to learn all these very complex classics first. Not going to learn your favorite songs or the stuff you listen to on the radio. Who cares about that? That's backwards learning for music from my experience.
I agree. There was a good comment here that I wanted to highlight from Lisa Katrine, who said Al should have told him he could play. It's kind of mean that he didn't, but it made for a better story that you don't know. And when I was watching it, I also thought to myself, he could have just said, listen, you know how to play. This is going to be okay. Well, we need to jog your memory. And Al just doesn't say anything and kind of leaves everybody in suspense. It's good from a storytelling perspective, but he does come off as a bit of a douche, whether intentionally or unintentionally. But I do like Al.
Later on too.
What'd you say?
Go ahead, Nick, first, please.
he makes a point of saying, I've got a solution. We'll go over it tomorrow night because there's an extra day here before the thing. And then when he appears, then they don't do it. And I was like, that scene ended, and I thought to myself, wait, he didn't prepare him. Like, is that going to happen? And so when they showed him out there when we get to there, I was just kind of like, it made me feel nervous as somebody watching, even knowing it's fake,
I like to think that Al is kind of getting hip to this jumping thing, and maybe he had a suspicion that muscle memory would kick in if he just sprung it on him. But, I don't know.
Yeah. But I think this is kind of like the weird pattern that Al has in this episode that he doesn't really do in other previous episodes, and not so much later on, where he holds back information to serve the plot of the story as opposed to serving the characters. Because there's a scene that we'll get to later on where Al just keeps on saying Sam, Sam, and it's like there's no reason for him to stop there. No one else can hear him. Just say what you got to say. Because that's the advantage of being a hologram that's only able to communicate with Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly, I'll say that Tornado says Al was the bad guy in Beverly Hills Cop 2. Yes, he was. He has that gun range, and he's one of the bad guys. I agree. Actually, Dean Stockwell was in a ton of movies that sometimes you don't even remember, but he's a character
Werewolf
actor.
of Washington.
Right.
He's also the bad guy in a very awesome episode of Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. One that's actually very sci-fi and prophetic in what it means to be a publisher of media.
He was in The Manchurian Candidate. He was in, I mean, these are just off the top of my head. He was in that Married to the Mob, which he was nominated for awards for.
Dunwich Horror.
Which one?
The Dunwich Horror, I think he was in.
Yeah.
70s Lovecraft movie.
It's possible. That one I don't know if I've seen, but he's been in a ton of stuff. Ron Donofero says, but perhaps Al knew he had to throw Sam into it to get him to remember and perform.
Yeah,
that's
what
a
I
good
was
thing.
saying.
That's a fair thing to say. Huh, so does he already know that she gets killed, or at this point they don't know it yet?
I think he tells her in this one, tells him that Michelle gets strangled afterwards.
Yeah, but judging by the face, he's like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
So here, maybe there was like a commercial break between him saying that, and he's like, well, I'll just keep her from going to the park. And then you see this is with the payoff with interesting looking French woman who is walking and
Chanel's gun as opposed to Chekhov's, I guess.
Right. Right, exactly. So she gets strangled. I thought that was cool. It's not something that we often see in this way on Quantum Leap. It was kind of more of a noir type of thing that they were going for. I liked it.
It was very interesting to me because he didn't leap back to save her. Like she wasn't important enough. She wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah, they just figured she would die. Yeah, I thought about that he couldn't even stop the person from killing her. But at the same time, he didn't. I mean, I guess Al could have told him who the other victims were, and he never did. They didn't even make an effort. But I mean, if he would have told him, listen, there's one tonight that gets strangled in Central Park, Sam could have already gone there, caught the bad guy, and then, he saves a few lives. But I'm not going to be nitpicky. I thought of it while I was watching the episode that he actually wasn't able to save her.
Isn't there a rule in science fiction that, especially in time travel, that there are certain things in history that have to happen no matter what? Like, what are they called? Like benchmarks? Yeah, fixed points. So she had to die.
I mean, I'll accept the explanation. I feel like there may have been, but yeah, if he would have stopped then there's no episode. So I understand that they did whatever they had to do. It would have been nice if there was an explanation why Ziggy doesn't know, but whatever. Maybe he didn't find her. They only found her thing later, so they didn't know when she was that or something like that. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. We see now they're in New York City, where there's a large crowd of people. They're all here to see the Beatles. And Sam's walking here. There's one fainting. I thought the fainting here was a bit exaggerated, but it's
that was
I
the
don't.
thing, man.
I think it's accurate.
It's pretty
no.
accurate.
I mean, they used to faint, but the fact that she kind of stands and she falls into his arms, I thought was a bit much. No, the fact that there were girls screaming and having meltdowns, that's 100% true. Like everything else is 100% accurate.
What are you talking about? Women are the most calm, even-tempered, even-keeled types on the planet. I don't know.
No, I mean, Beatlemania was a real thing. I agree, Sean. They really
kidding.
did faint.
It was nuts. I mean, my aunt was part of Beatlemania, and there's 8mm footage of her and her friends just freaking out and fainting, and it's like, how did you faint to that?
All the screaming takes all the oxygen out of your brain, and you just
Exactly.
Oh, there you go.
Well,
and
now
there's that kind of behavior with really any famous music. So Beatles was like an extreme.
It broke the
Right.
threshold.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, there was no social media. There were no real celebrities and no nothing. And suddenly this band comes along and it became this international thing. It's the kind of stuff that today we see more of the way people learn about something and talk about it all over the world. But in those days, you had some phenomena like that and really was that kind of big deal. Same with what we saw with Elvis and later with maybe a Michael Jackson and things like that. When you have that kind of level of celebrity, I think the world is different today, so you don't quite have that exact thing anymore. Anyhow, the cop arrives again. He's kind of friendly. He's telling him, "Oh, this the strangle or whatever." He's also on the lookout. He's pretending he gives a shit and whatever. Then Sam goes to the diner to meet his assistant / love interest girl lady friend.
Michelle?
And then
technical
Her name,
terms.
Michelle?
and then he kind of tells her, "Oh, why aren't you telling? You didn't tell." Is this at the part where the mom already met him or no?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Oh, so is she just BSing him here and telling him about how she'll tell the mom and do all this stuff? Or remind me this conversation here. I'm trying to remember.
He's saying that he wants her to go to dinner at some point, so she
After
won't
the
get killed.
recital. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's missing mustard.
Yeah, and
Yes,
He's
that
really
was a
trying-
big point.
he's the most important one. He's really trying to convince her that she's worthwhile as a person and stuff like that. Everything opposite of what her mom is basically hammering on her for.
Sam was really nitpicky with that mustard thing. I mean, he knows that everybody can think he's blind. He's just looking for trouble there.
He's very bad at playing a blind person.
Yeah, that's what Lisa
he should walk around with his eyes closed. But when he keeps giving excuses, but this is something I wanted to ask earlier to the group, because the show ended and I still didn't come to a conclusion. Can he see because he leaped into this person and somehow his soul can see? Or is this guy that he leaped into a fraud and is falsely claiming that he's blind?
I think it's implied that the guy really is blind. And first of all, it's a terrific question. I never even thought of that. I just thought that he leaped into a guy who is blind, but because he can see, and he as Sam can see, he's sort of overcoming that barrier.
Can I say that kind of touches on my confusion with the previous episode where he was a woman? When I saw that as a kid, I had the impression that the guy that was hitting on him as a woman actually felt his invisible junk, but that obviously didn't happen. But that still lives in my brain. So you asking that question makes me think he has invisible eyeballs that they can see.
That explains your anger, Sean.
My anger?
But invisible eyeballs that are, as we will see, affected by the flash of a camera.
Yeah,
yeah, it's some sort of it's like the soul magic of the show. Like what Sam actually can do is isolated from the body that he possesses. It does get a little hokey in the 5th season, though.
Yes, there's a few things that happen there that are a bit off, but I go on.
Yeah, but like for this one here, I think it's just kind of it's the challenge of the the concept of the show, which is that he's got to pretend to be a blind person, just like he has to pretend to be a woman or a black man or a kid, or later on he's in a body of another young adult with a disability, and he's got to navigate that. And in some cases, some of the attributes that individual has hinder Sam's ability to actually complete his goal.
Coincidentally, Soul Magic was the name of my band in the 70s. We did discos.
Cool.
Is there at any point in the show, does he ever leap into a crippled person and be able to walk?
No comment.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
this is an issue, and I think that a lot of people that like this show it's a point of contention that people talk about in one of the, I think it is the 5th season. I think there's certainly a lot of things to discuss about that, but we don't want to jump so much forward. So, but yes, you all are asking good questions here. And if I had to just sum it up in a sentence, I feel like the show sometimes shifts around based on what it needs that episode to be. I don't always love shifting around, but it is what it is. As Script says, there was once that I won't spoil, there's once that he's in a person that stutters, so he starts stuttering. And you have situations like that sometimes where somebody has some kind of thing and it actually applies to Sam. And then in other cases, the person has it, but Sam is there and he actually doesn't have it. But I guess if I had to give an overall explanation, perhaps the spiritual guide that's guiding him is doing it exactly the way that guide wants it to be. If that makes any sense.
It was God. Moving on.
right. And that's the best answer I can give, I guess.
He heals the blind.
The dog sees Al. He's seeing the treats, and of course, the mother walks in and she sees Sam reading off the box, and she says, "Oh, you're a fraud. Can't be with my daughter."
Al doesn't do the right thing, which is like, Sam, there's a woman behind you. Shut up.
Right. Again, in this episode, Al is kind of, and I think it's just because the script needed him to do that, but at every corner, he's kind of a douche because he doesn't tell him he can play the piano until the last minute. The mom comes, he doesn't warn him. I mean, it's all good for the screenplay that they need these things to happen, but they did kind of throw Al under the bus in this episode.
They're a bit too contrived means to get to those ends as opposed to natural ones. Like, for instance, if Al wasn't there, make way more sense. Absolutely.
Right.
But they put Al in there. It's like, no, he should have left or should have come in after the fact. Like after she catches him, that's when the wall opens up and Al shows in. It's like, oh crap, what's going on here? Where have you been? Like Sam could have been like,
right.
You might know this, but is he contracted to be in the episode for a certain number of minutes?
No, it's at the discretion of the writers because it's only Dean Stockwell and Scott Bakula that are principal roles. They're in every episode at their rates, regardless how many minutes of screen time they have.
I agree. I think that I don't think they had a deal. It's a good question, but I don't think they had a deal that like Al only arrives for one scene. I think that he pretty much arrives whenever he's needed.
Yep.
And
what they usually do have is they say, okay, we know they'll have a default with regards to the franchise per act. Whereas like we know in this act we have to have a scene between Sam and Al, and then we know at the tail end of Act 2 we have to have a scene between Sam and Al, and then we know in some point in Act 3 we have to have the scene with Sam and Al, and then there could be parts of like in between Act 1 and 2, or if this would be a 5-act structure for the hour long, so it'd be Act 1 with Sam and Al, maybe no Al in Act 2, Al in Act 3, no Al in Act 4, and Al in Act 5, and that would be the model, the base model, which is that's the minimum that you have to use Al, but you can actually put him in every single act if you still want, because again he's the principal cast, he's the main cast. It's 2 stars to the show, and it's those 2 guys.
I always want him to be in more, but I feel like if he is, it'll ruin him a little bit. Too much of a good thing, too much of a good special effect, stuff like that. I really love him. Yeah.
Oh, I see that Tex Rogers has arrived. So Tex, I know he was doing a lot of things today, but it's great that you joined us. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Sean. Sometimes Al is such a special thing that you don't want to overuse him. In most episodes, I actually think he's used very well. in this one, and I agree with what Script was saying, and I was thinking that while watching the episode, I enjoyed the episode, and I love the concept, and there's a lot of good things about it, but more than maybe the other ones that we've seen until now, there were a few contrivances that were a bit, you know, a bit over the top, but not in a way that I don't enjoy the episode, but they're still worth noting. And yes, this thing with Al arriving could have been handled differently. Probably would have worked better.
Why does he call the dog a chicken there? Because he's like hiding in the curtain. When he pulls it open, he's like chicken. And I was like, "What? Did I miss something?"
I'm not sure. I did. I actually may have missed that. Anybody have an idea why he says it?
Maybe it's like because he has so much anxiety and stage fright about having to perform, and the dog is like, "I don't want to see this," and just like goes off on his own, so he doesn't have to watch it.
I'll accept it. I don't have any other thoughts on it, but it's as good as explanation as any. Here he's doing the Josh Brolin thing. He puts on his glasses. The assistant / love interest lady friend helps him with his bow tie. And then I think he tells her, no, you know, you have to be yourself and stay here and don't go anywhere or whatever. I assume, I don't remember the exact words, but that's probably what happens,
He tells her
right?
she's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, she's beautiful too. I mean,
And that she can't, and as much as she has to respect her mom, she can't be an outlet or be something her mother lives vicariously through in order to be happy. Like, you know, she's superimposing her flaws onto her daughter to guilt her daughter into staying.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like this, how he puts it in the middle and then he has to touch it for him to see it. I like this whole thing. I think it was set up nicely. You know, they don't have a lot of money for effects even for their day, but, you know, given the effects available and what they could do, I thought this was handled pretty well. And
Oh,
the
that's
idea,
brilliant. Him having to touch it. I didn't even catch on to that.
It's a rule that's
subtle.
conveyed without being told.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
He has to
And
touch
that's
it or
my
else.
that's my favorite kind of stuff. The things
And
you
then
aren't told specifically.
at the end, when they both take a bow, that the easel vanishes instantly. Like
That's
the
great.
continuity is brilliant. Like they're like, "Yep, this is the rule. This is how we establish it, and this is how it's going to be."
I love these kind of things that they don't talk about it and you understand what it's like. In any case, he explains to him that he knows and he's played Carnegie Hall before and he's great, and then he's like, okay, and he plays it. But then the mom arrives and tells her he's not even blind. How could you love him? Blah blah blah. And then you know, after she poisons her mind with the truth, but still, I mean, it's a complicated truth. Sam, whatever, they bow and do whatever, and the thing disappears. So at this point, she is sad because he notices that it's the mom, and he says, "Oh, Mrs. Whatever your name is, so great to see you here." And then that once she knows that he recognizes her, and she was kind of poisoning her mind, she runs off. And unfortunately for Sam, the Beatles are running off as well at the same time. And between the Beatles and her running, he just can't seem to catch her. Then there's another, and again, I do believe this is somewhat of a contrivance, and I understand what they were going for here, but it's a bit odd. There's an exploding light from a flash, which basically blinds Sam, maybe temporarily, but at this
It's
moment
the
in
flash
time,
bulbs from
What'd
the
you say?
1960s. They particles. They didn't always have a shield in front of them, so bits of the actual lens would fly out into the air, and that blinded him, and those bits got into his eyes.
Yeah.
right?
I was also going to say this is the most tasteful that Al has ever dressed in the show, but I think he's also, his costume is supposed to be like Cab Calloway from back in the day, the old jazz singer.
Like from the Blues Brothers.
Yeah, actually, he was a lot older then, but he
Heidi,
was
Heidi,
kind
Heidi,
of
ho.
he was a controversial figure from what I can remember.
Well, he was good in the Blues Brothers, but thanks to him, he was able to hold down the fort until they arrived at their charity concert. In any case, Sam tries to wash his eyes, but he sees he's temporarily disabled. I do like that they show what he's seeing. Thought that was
Mhm.
pretty cool that you can't see, but you're kind of seeing what he's seeing, which is all those weird particles. Thought that was pretty cool. So at this point now, it's like he has to actually really be blind and find her as he's blind. So it kind of adds to the stakes and makes it more challenging. And it's interesting. It's an interesting twist, if you want to call it, but at the same time, there was a bit of contrivance to it, but it was an interesting development nevertheless. Anyhow, she's walking here, and she gets attacked by the Strangler, but she manages to get away.
Yeah, I don't understand how she managed to stab him with a nail file at that angle. Like, how do you get your arm around for that type of arc? I think more like in the sides, like between the ribs or kidney area would be way more accessible.
Yes, this again, this whole development here was a bit convenient in the sense that she got it, she did it, and then she's running. She's not running very fast, and if he had that stuck in his neck, I would think that he would be running slower, but I don't know. The whole
Between
thing.
the shoulder blades, essentially.
Yeah. Also, you guys were asking, like, why didn't they look up where the other murders were took place or found? For this, I was like, why didn't Al just look up where they found her body and then head to that location?
Yeah, that would have been
The
more
only
effective.
question is if he used to take the body somewhere else or if
Yeah.
it's exactly where it was. But generally speaking, I feel like between Ziggy, Al, and Sam, I feel like they didn't make the biggest effort here to solve this crime. It's fine. It's fine for the viewers, but they let one French woman die without doing anything, and this other one they were kind of nonchalant about it too. It's
Well,
okay.
To be fair, I think the French woman died before they really knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like,
that's
the
fair enough.
Clearly, the timing was not to the benefit for them to have saved the extra lady.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give it that maybe he was just picking. They were just learning the material, and the French lady was gone.
Yeah, we've seen in other episodes where Sam will take on a whole heap of other problems while trying to solve one.
Here also the thing that he's trying to cuff him, but he's blind and whatever. I mean, I think that at this point, this officer guy could just kick him and just run away. But
German Shepherd tearing at your arm, though, like,
is that enough though? Is the dog enough to?
Well, it's
Yes.
the dog and the fact that he's been stabbed in the back.
yeah.
I guess so. Maybe between the stabbing and the dog, they can somehow explain it.
As
Anyhow,
someone who my wife trains dogs, and we've had German Shepherds, and yeah,
They'll jack
they're
you up.
powerful, and they can knock you down, drag you. They're powerful dogs.
so at this point, even though he saved her life, he's still not leaping. So Sam figures he needs to have a little conversation here with the mom and her, and then he kind of guilt trips the mom and says, "Listen, you're choking her just like this killer tried to choke her. You two are one and the same," which was a bit harsh, but I guess it got his point across or whatever he was trying to do. And Sam really puts the mom in her place, and the mom the mom tries something with a match to see earlier. I don't know if here it is.
It's
to
a little
see if
early.
he's
Yeah.
blind, and then it turns out that he is blind because he's temporarily blind. So now she figures maybe it was a misunderstanding before when she thought he wasn't blind. And after he tells her, "Listen, your husband may have left you, and you're kind of a bitter old lady. Your daughter's not going to necessarily be the same thing. So maybe don't act like such a annoying." Never mind. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, helicopter parent. Really, just don't be a helicopter parent. But it does have one really cringe delivery line from Sam where he says, "Yes, mama." I'm like, that. He didn't need to say that.
Yeah, that was a bit cringe. I mean, he didn't need to do it. I think that in the 60s, she calls her the mama, whatever. It's all fine, but I think he took it one step too far there. But you know what? By the time you know what's going on, he's already leaped, and now he's a DJ. And again, we don't get a oh boy here. It's still not like a consistent thing, and
Not
we
yet.
don't get.
Do we not get a no boy? I thought we did.
I thought he says, "I'm a DJ," and then it ends.
And then he's like,
Yes. He said, you get no boy at the start of the episode, but not.
Right.
Which, I thought he was going to jump into Wolfman Jack.
Yeah, me too.
That would have been awesome.
I mean, the thing is, they're still kind of finding the right formula. There'll be a moment that I guess they just got it the way they got it with the old boy and the opening and the way they did. And they're like, how could we have ever done it any differently? But they had to go through a process. There's even a middle. There's another phase in which there's a longer opening of narration from Deborah Pratt, and then the one that we end up knowing. So there's still going to be a few different stages here.
Yep.
But I found it funny that like he was like taken back, like, oh, this is going to be hard. I'm like, you were just a pianist. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
That's a whole lot harder than
you're
being a
fine.
radio digi.
I want to look at some of the comments we have here because, let's see what some of the people in the chat think. Tex Rogers, who's joined us, it's still a good show despite everything. I agree. It's fun. I think that the idea is there. A lot of work here is being done this time by Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell to really sell this, even in parts that were a bit contrived. I think that their likability and their presence really helps smoothen it over, which that's what it's lucky that even if you have something that maybe there's a bit of something you're not sure about, at least the cast and the atmosphere and everybody involved do such a good job that you kind of just you let it slide. That happens sometimes, and I think this show, if you have a good show, then you'll be able to get the viewers to still go along with it if you're creating the right atmosphere and the right fun and the right vibe. That's my opinion. You guys can weigh in. I mean, you guys on the panel, not just the ones in the chat. One of you guys can weigh in.
I tried. You had nothing to contribute there.
No, it's good.
Pretty good.
We say it the last few weeks. We say it all the time. Like even if it's not like the most memorable episode, it's still a solid baseline. It's still a lot of fun to watch, and it's enjoyable week to week.
Ishmael says, I love the cheese. Sorry, somebody was going to say something?
Oh, I was going to say, because last week I was talking about how much I liked the episode. I would say out of every episode we've reviewed so far, this would be my least favorite, and I still enjoyed it.
I would have to agree with you. Not my favorite episode. It was a little ho-hum for me, but I still enjoyed it. I just don't like stories with blind people. I'm just kidding.
Last week,
Or dogs.
Although Al's solution for him to being like that whole setup wouldn't have worked, but I honestly would have found it more interesting if he suddenly found himself blind and it was an episode about him like just trying to figure out how am I going to save this woman when I'm helpless.
I'm blind. Yeah.
Because he doesn't have years of learning how to be blind and function in the world, and he's trying to. I figure an episode of him stumbling around that would have been more interesting. That's what I thought we were going to get from the teaser from the last one.
Yeah, I think the dynamic, the story would have had definitely a different dynamic, more serious, dramatic, and probably more more
time
urgency.
Consuming.
Well, time consuming, but I guess if they did it, in a creative way, but I think it definitely would have had more urgency and suspense because you're kind of fighting against time. You don't want this girl character to get killed by the Central Park Strangler. So that would have been an interesting twist.
Would have been interesting. I don't hate it. Lisa Katrine made a good point, which I actually forgot to mention. It says he is really playing. His dad was a concert pianist. Scott Bakula knew how to play piano and knows how to play piano and sing. And this show, whenever it can, it utilizes that. I think that in scenes like that where he's playing piano, that's really good.
It doesn't produce any sound, specifically so they don't have to retake.
What'd you say?
It's a model piano. It has no chords in it. So he's playing all the real keys as convincingly as possible, but they dub in post what the actual music is because number one, it screws up audio when you're doing it. Number two, it saves time on actually shooting takes. If the person screws up during a take, that take is ruined, right? You don't want to risk that because of audio. So you have basically a hollowed out piano. The guys play, or they shoot it MOS, which is called with mint out sound, and they do the stuff and then they just loop that in later. So it doesn't even matter if the actor can play or not. They're always going to put the proper music in that needs to be in for the show to save time and money, because we never want to do that live. Like even on Saturday Night Live, when they do the live sketches, it's the band backstage playing, not the actors on the sketch aren't doing anything really. They're just pretending to play.
Right. But I will say that he actually does know how to play piano professionally. So whatever trickery they use and how they decide to do it is on them. But I will say that it actually helps that he does know. I also wonder, there's a future one, and we won't get into it because it's a future episode with a pool hall one. And that one, I actually feel like he is playing the piano and singing. And I feel like it's just a live take to my ears. That thing that he's singing with his daughter, it felt live to me, but maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong on it.
Well, the singing part was definitely in camera, because again, when you have those two loud sounds at the same time, your boom mic or your shotgun mic is not going to be able to separate the channels, so you can't do a proper mix.
When we get to that episode, we can go over it. We'll get to it sometime, so it'll be interesting. I haven't seen that one in a while, but I had the impression that it was a live take of it, but I could be wrong. In this case, I'll accept what you say. I think that he knows how to play, but maybe for production purposes, it would have been better to do it the way they said it.
There's no dispute on the knowledge of playing. Like, that's the thing. Like, we're both in lockstep in that. Same with Lisa. Like, he does know how to play the piano. I've heard him at conventions play the piano.
Right.
But like, for the purposes of television, they just don't risk it, because again, it can screw up a whole lot of other things in post-production that you don't want to waste time and money fixing.
I agree. Let's see. Was there anything else that was interesting? Scott is an amazing piano player. They choose a great actress. I don't know for which one. They said he chose a great actress for the assistant / love interest lady. I thought that the mother was a pretty decent actress. I mean, you wanted her to be annoying, and she very quickly gets to the chase and annoys you. So she does her job.
She's been around for a while too. She's been in a lot over the years. I think I know her from being a mother in the movie Heathers.
Ishmael says the mom was such a hater. She was a hater.
I was looking at her because she looked so familiar that I was looking her up, because at first I was like, she kind of looks like an older Tegan from Doctor Who, and then when I looked her up and I looked at like her more recent photo, I was like, oh man, she looks like from Golden Girls. She did not age gracefully.
Lisa Katrina's thanking you, Script Doctor. She didn't know that about the piano she's referring. Tex Rogers says, to date, my favorite is either Kamikaze Kid or Play It Again Seymour. I actually think I agree with Tex. I think that those are probably the episodes that I've especially liked until now. But all of them have been good. Even when there's an episode that you like more or less, I still think that there's sort of a baseline that's good. The show has established that it's kind of fun. Am I stuck? Oh, no. You got... I thought for a second that the computer was stuck because you all were frozen, but then it turns out that you were just making frozen faces.
I'm sorry, I should not have done that to all of you guys.
That's Script's fault, man.
Rondon Affair says, I like the pool hall one. That's one that's going to be an interesting one, and it has that kind of music that we were discussing. It's a very interesting episode that we'll get to at some point. And I guess let's just go around and just maybe have some final thoughts. Anybody on the episode? Let's start with Script Doctor. You have any final thoughts on it?
I thought it's a pretty solid episode, aside from like two contrivances. I think it was not as good as last week's episode, but it's not a bad one to show people to get them to want to watch more. It's pretty interesting and fun, and it had a lot better special effects than I expected. The shot of Al going into the door where Sam is in the foreground was really well done. It was quite convincingly. You don't usually see kind of a layered effect like that in late 80s television for special effects on a single camera show like this.
Yeah, I mean the show it doesn't do extravagant things, but when it does something, I think it does it pretty well with the effects considering what they had in the time. By the way, in Rumble we have the real Dade Lee Murphy.
How do we know it's the real Dade Lee Murphy?
Well, I've seen this guy for a while. I already know him, so I know that he indeed is the real Dade Lee Murphy. I mean, you're the real Sean Krummel. You should know.
I'm just asking. I get asked the same question.
I feel so left out.
The real Rose Scarif Scuttlebutt.
So I guess moving on to you, Nick. How do you feel about this episode?
Well, it's kind of I said, it's my least liked of all the ones we did, but I still thought it was fun. So we've yet to have an episode that I would say is a dud or a bad episode. So this one was mostly just because I was really hung up and confused about the whole eyesight thing. That took me out of it a little bit because I was trying to figure out that for a good portion of them, and so I was worried I was missing other things. At this point in time, was there already talk about like Stevie Wonder being able to see?
I don't think that they said it. I mean, even until today, I don't know that he can see. Actually, I mean, it's...
Well, no, I know, but there is a huge group of conspiracy theorists.
Yes, I've heard the conspiracy.
They have video, like they'll compile this list of every time he proved that he could see, and I felt like this episode, like the writer almost took that and made this episode off of it because Sam is constantly doing things, and people are going, I thought you were blind. How were you able to do that?
And
that was the things with him.
They didn't know. I don't think that these conspiracy theorists existed back then. You're right that there's some that I've heard in more recent years, but I tend to think it wasn't a thing back then.
I think before you had the internet and YouTube and you could clip all that stuff, it'd be pretty hard to convince somebody of that. But it was the things of like somebody would throw something at him and he would grab it and catch it, or it's so.
I still tend to think sometimes also, again, just giving my 2 cents, and I don't know anything about this topic that you're discussing, but I mean just very little. I think that at times maybe you have a person that's mostly blind and maybe there's a few shadows or something that he could see. The other thing is that there have been operations over the years that maybe could improve somebody's situation. If there's money for a person and he can get some kind of improvement, maybe somebody like Stevie gets something like that done, and maybe he can see 10%, which before he saw like 0%. And I wouldn't have an issue if he did. You know what I mean? Like that wouldn't bother me if he did that. I simply don't know. So have no idea.
And I'm not trying to take us down that. I was just wondering if that would have been for the writing room, if that would have been in the zeitgeist yet.
If it was today, I would have said maybe, but back then I don't think it was an inspiration. I think this is just something that they did, and maybe they saw Stevie Wonder playing piano and they're like, hey, what if Sam was playing piano? But I don't think they thought to themselves if you can see or not. I don't think that they went there at that moment in time. But it's a good point. I mean, it's relevant more for today. At that time, I just don't think that there was chatter like that. Like you said, no internet. There wasn't even CompuServe or whatever weird BBS servers or whatever it was. Those things didn't even exist then.
That just means that the nuts had to be more dedicated to their craft back then. Everyone got lazy now.
For sure. Sean, how did you feel about this episode?
It's good. It actually did remind me of the Play It Again Seymour episode with the twist of the bad guy. But I don't know what it is. Like, they do a good job of introducing a character that I completely forget about until the end when they say that they're the murderers. I'm a big fan of murder mysteries anyway, so anytime they do an episode like this, I'm entertained. And I really liked how much they played up the dog as a character. I'm not like a big dog person, but I found that character to be very charming throughout.
I'll tell you I'll tell you one thing that you said that was interesting. When I saw the thing with the Beatles, it's kind of like almost dumb that it's there. It almost too convenient or whatever. But the one thing that it does is that the officer keeps arriving on his horse, and the reason he's arriving is because the Beatles are there, and that actually makes sense. Otherwise, if we saw him every second, it would be like, this guy's suspicious. Why is he here every second? They actually, the Beatles creates a reason for the guy to be there, which kind of lowers the feeling that he's actually the suspect. So that actually, I think, was done very well, as opposed to the contrivances. I think the Beatles and the officer were a good idea.
Yeah, I thought that was really great. Maybe it's a bit over the top for it being the Beatles, but I thought it was a lot of fun to have that as something to play off of in the background.
Yeah, and the setup was good. He's like, oh, yeah, you like the Beatles too? They're coming here. I hate those kids. And then somehow they built it up in a way that you think that they're Beatles. He has to do the thing. He's his neighbor. He's nice to the dog. He gives him treats. So you think maybe at the end he can actually call this policeman friend to help him catch the murder. But instead he ends up being the murder. I thought that was done pretty well.
I kept expecting him to meet the Beatles.
Right,
because
they had one shot of them leaving the hotel.
Yeah, you saw their wigs flapping around.
There was this.
Well, it's just how they've shown him, but I think that was something we've mentioned a couple of times. It was kind of them finding their footing in the first season. Like, he kept influencing famous people, and so I kept waiting for the scene where he offhandedly gives them a song lyric, or
he's like, yeah, and then they go and write that song.
Yeah, I kept waiting for something like that.
Yeah.
Here, Tex Rogers wanted to know that in 1990, Dean Stockwell won a Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actor in Quantum Leap. And then, just for completeness, Scott Bakula won the Golden Globe Award in 1991, 92, and 93 for Quantum Leap. All of this makes sense to me. They did give great performances. I would have given them more awards. I mean,
they got a bunch of daytime Emmys.
What'd you say?
They got a bunch of daytime Emmys because they were a daytime show, aired before 6 p.m.
They did?
Yeah.
I don't...
I know they were nominated a lot. I'm pretty sure they won a bunch. Let me double check on that. Sorry.
I feel like I know, you're also in Canada, so I think that maybe for you it was 6 p.m., but I think that for US, this was a primetime show, like at 8 p.m. or whatever it is.
That's what I thought.
Price, your American is showing. Canada and the U.S. are on the same time zones. It's east to west coast.
But they might have regionally aired it.
Right. I mean, maybe they had
primetime Emmys. They got 27 or so nominations.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I just feel like the Emmys did the Emmys give them the awards? I feel like the Golden Globes always gave them. Did they won Emmys too? I just don't remember.
Emmys are primarily for television, and
I mean, did they win? Did Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell win for Emmys for the show?
Let me see here. It's
Texas saying 90 to 93 primetime Emmys.
Yeah. For some reason, the way IMDb has new formatted it, they don't put the wins anymore. They just put stuff in parentheses. What the heck?
Well, that would be racist to say that anyone won anything.
Yeah, they formatted it all weird. So usually they do the nomination category, and then they do if they won or not. And now they just kind of blocked it all together. So it looks like it got Outstanding Individual Achievement in Art Direction. Scott Bakula got it at 1993 nominee Primetime Emmy.
But did he win, or he just got nominated?
There we go. Yeah, so it just got nominated. They really screwed up their organization for this. So for acting wise, bunch of nominations. They got winners for cinematography, a lot of cinematography wins, and mostly that's it. Not for performance on the Emmy side of things. It doesn't.
I feel that they didn't show the show the respect that it needed. I think that it's an embarrassment that they didn't get a bunch of Emmys. This was probably one of the best things happening on TV during those years, and to not even, get any awards, and the Golden Globes just kept giving them the awards. I think that it says something about the Emmys, but these award ceremonies have always been annoying. During those days, I feel like they at least tried to give some awards to people that deserve it. Today, they don't even do that. But let's move on to Ro. How did you feel about this episode?
So I'll echo a couple of things that that the rest of the guys said. It wasn't my favorite. But here's the thing about even the shows that are the episodes that are not my favorite. I mean, they're pretty solid. Besides the performances, obviously we've already talked about that. But I don't know. For someone that didn't watch the show during its first run, I mean, I'm really enjoying the chemistry between Al and Sam. I'm really enjoying the acting. I'm really enjoying the overall premise, the situations that these characters have found themselves in. Each one is different, and each one brings kind of a certain cool factor to the story. I saw somebody earlier say that we've got a couple of really, really great episodes coming up, so I'm looking forward to that. But I'm glad, Price, that you asked me to be on this panel to watch the show in its entirety, and let's keep going.
Yeah, it's fun. We're doing something. It's a fun study. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, for me, this just feels always like just hanging out with a group of friends and doing something that I think is fun. And I hope that some of the people that watch it, whether live or later, also get this feeling, because we enjoy doing this. We enjoy talking to you guys about how you feel about the show, like we do every week. And it's fun that we're able to celebrate something positive. There's so little. I don't want to say be pessimistic. I mean, there's not always a lot to be positive about these days. So when we find something that we can all sort of either rediscover or just we've always liked or whatever it is, and we all can watch it together and enjoy it, I think it's cool.
Positivity.
And I'm very happy to be doing this with you guys.
Positivity is a choice, Price.
And
it's a breath of fresh air every week.
It really is. And remember, if you pan up, you're doing it wrong.
And then just some great comments before we go. I feel Ron Donofero says, I feel the friendship here. Tex Rogers says, I've gotten to enjoy this group and I regret when I have to miss it. We enjoy your presence here too, Tex.
Yes.
Tornado's great show. Thank you. Lisa Katrine, I love.
Oh. You know what, Lisa? We love that you love.
I love being able to participate. Yes, and we love that as well.
I sent it to you soon.
We're getting better at it.
Yeah. We're doing it every week. We're getting better, and we're getting to know we know each other, but we're getting kind of the way we discuss the show and our flow along with you guys, the way we interact with you. So just looking forward to doing this again next week as we do. And
you know what phrase I didn't use this time? Plot hole. No, it was all good. It was all good.
So yeah, I guess before we go, I'll find our before we go, just let's see if anybody wants to still. Script Doctor, do you have anything to plug?
Just this Saturday's Script on Saturday show. Looking forward to it. Don't want to spoil it. It's an interesting script. And now it's our second of the same writer, which is just by happenstance. I didn't actually plan it that way. It just happened. So.
Oh, wow. It's probably more attention than this writer has been getting in a long time.
You know what? Yes, actually it would be.
He should send you a bouquet of flowers then.
There's enough flowers in my apartment right now. Yesterday was Valentine's Day.
Of course.
Oh, that's right.
Nick, do you have anything you want to plug?
Mostly my adventures in locksmithing. Specifically, tomorrow I've been working on my new series of Locksmith Reacts to Hollywood. I've done 2 now in the Star Wars universe. Tomorrow I'll be going to, in the morning, I'll be dropping a video looking at Doctor Who, specifically one of the Christmas specials during the Moffat era where the TARDIS gets picked open with a hairpin. And, is that even physically possible if it wasn't the TARDIS? Discussing that and kind of looking at that. And then I've already gotten the can ones that'll be coming out the preceding Fridays. One that was a burn notice stealing a garbage truck, and the other one is looking at the Panderverse from South Park and like their commentary on. It seems like nobody knows how to do stuff anymore.
For sure. Sean, anything you want to plug before we go?
Sundays, usually around 5:30, we just have a hangout stream. My co-host and I talk about movies or comics or toys or other nonsense, and I occasionally doodle on there. I posted a video today, finally, in a long time. You can look at that, and other than that, you can check out the Etsy shop if you want stickers for your laptop or something.
Awesome. I think it's is it Sean Krummel Art at Etsy? Which one is it?
RealSeanKrummelArt.etsy.com.
It's in the description wherever you're watching. I usually add it, but in case you just wanted to hear him say it, then he also gave you a narration. Ro, before we go, do you have anything you want to plug?
Yeah, this Saturday I'm talking with author and futurist Gary Bengier. I can't remember if I'm doing that live, but he wrote a book. We're going to talk about it, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and some false notions and some things that people are afraid of, what to be afraid of, what not to be afraid of, and a little sci-fi in there. I'm also teaming up with my Canadian friend Heidi. She runs a channel called Costume Co., and we are teaming up with the very famous auction house Prop Store out in LA. And we will be featuring, at the end of the month, we'll be featuring the Anthony Daniels collection that is going up for auction. And there's going to be, I'm going to get my checkbook ready because there's a couple of things that I might be picking up.
Wow. Well, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Will you be married afterwards?
Who needs marriage?
Some
Find me
things
a
are more
3PO
important
head.
than marriage, Nick.
I need a C-3PO head. Yeah, more than a spouse.
And with
sound right.
with all of that that we just went through, I'd like to thank everybody the panel. I'd like to thank and everybody that tuned in here today. We will see you all next week, and I guess now we just need to play our outro, which I will load up in a second. This is our official outro. We'll see you all next week. Bye. Oh, that was actually the intro. So still
Plot
working
hole.
on that. Was a plot hole. No, we're gonna do the outro now.
Sorry.
Such an awesome guy.